We'll go ahead and get started. So to build off of the conversation that Kevin and Christine just facilitated about documentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about all of the community resources available and the support available to you. So a lot of it will be familiar because we just talked about it, but hopefully it will spur you to think about your own involvement with ArchivesSpace. So I am Jessica Crouch, the Community Engagement Coordinator for ArchivesSpace. So in my title, community engagement is very important to me and what I do. So one of the guiding principles of ArchivesSpace is to foster a community of mutual support, making it possible for members to help each other and themselves. I took this directly from the ArchivesSpace website, so you know it's important. And that making it so that members can help each other and themselves is really important. We want to make sure that we're fostering a sense of community and that you feel like you're empowered to do the things in ArchivesSpace you want to do, and also that you feel that your voice is worth contributing to the community, because it definitely is. So I'm going to talk about a couple different resources. It's not just about documentation, though a lot of it is documentation. First, we'll talk about the program maintained resources. So these are the things that I maintain as community engagement coordinator, or someone else within the actual program team takes care of. So these are things that we are actively editing. So the first is the Help Center, which we just talked about. It's docs.archivespace.org, and that is a member benefit. So in the Help Center, you can find the user manual we just talked about and those videos that we talked about that I'm currently in the process of getting our trainers to re-record those videos. I will not be recording those videos. Hopefully they will be doing those videos. But that way they'll be more up to date. They will not be, we won't be able to do, like Christine said, we won't be able to do videos for every single rollout because it just the time required to do that would be impossible. But there are videos available online as well as the Help Center behind that member paywall. There's also the ArchivesSpace Wiki, which is open to anyone. That is a great place to find resources. You can find things related not just to like ArchivesSpace as an application, but to our actual meetings, our meeting notes, our governance, that sort of thing are available to you there. If you are interested in the schedule for this event or how to get to the reception afterwards, you find that sort of stuff on the wiki. So that's the sort of a one-stop shop to direct you to what you need. We also have a blog. The blog typically has like the monthly updates that go out. Kelly Spring, who's here but not in the room, is currently doing a series about their data migration at her institution. So it's things that we put out to the community as newsletters, and also if you would like to contribute to the blog, things to highlight things that you're doing, it's a great way to put out in one place. Here's just a bulletin I want everyone to be aware of, and this is how you find it. You can find the blog directly on our ArchivesSpace website. So it's an easy thing to navigate to, and that's freely available to anyone. We also have an ArchivesSpace YouTube. We've already talked about that today. So those are videos. They're more like demos of how things, different parts of the application work. So it's a good place to go if you want a refresher or you have a student who's never seen ArchivesSpace before. It's a good place to go. We also have webinars available online. So just like these recordings from today will be made available, we also do webinars that you can attend via Zoom in person, but we record those and make those available afterwards as well. Topics typically come from the community. So if there's something that you're particularly interested in and you think it would make a great webinar, or you would like to see it addressed and you feel like it's not addressed anywhere else, then let me know and we can definitely develop a webinar. You do not have to be willing to do the webinar. You just have to give me the idea. Sometimes people say, hey, I have a great idea, and I say, do you want to do this webinar? And they say, no, but I will happily attend, and that is perfect. And then we have forums. So this is our annual meeting. We do it in conjunction with SAA every year. This is our 5th one. I think that we're all getting to be a little bit old hat at these. But we also have started doing regional forums. So typically the regional forum, how it's been up until now, is a location where we either are located. So on November 15th, we're going to have a Southeastern Regional Forum in Columbia, South Carolina, where I live, because I was able to secure a good spot. So if you would like to see a forum in your region and you have a location, we would happily be able to work with you. But regional forums are something we want to build out in the future, so people who maybe can't travel to SAA every year for whatever reason, especially if they're from those smaller institutions where it's just not in the budget or not in the time, they might be able to make it to a smaller or a regional forum. And then, of course, this year we had our first ever online forum, which was actually open to non-members as well as members, and it was international. It spanned over 13 hours, and we had people dropping in and out as their time zones allowed. So there are ways to interact directly with the community live. Community maintained resources. So these are also things that came up in the earlier conversation. These are not resources that we as the program team created or maintained, but they are great resources that your fellow ArchivesSpace users have implemented. And these slides will be available online too. So the first one is Awesome ArchivesSpace, which Christine already mentioned. This is a great list on GitHub. It's just links to resources on migrations, trainings, documentation, plugins, integrations, implementations, APIs, and scripts. And it really is, it's a list, they're organized under those headings, and it's just a list of links that take you to the different university or different repositories that have sort of self-reported that they have done these things. So I know you guys are talking about your own GitHubs and things that you have available online. If you would like to make that part of the Awesome ArchivesSpace list, that would be great, because it's a really nice, it's not a one-stop shop because there are so many places that you can go find ArchivesSpace resources, but it's a great place to start. So if you want to put your own documentation under that banner, it doesn't have to be in GitHub. This is just where it is, and you can link out to whatever is available. There's also ArchiveSnake, which I know way less about because it's about the API, but these are scripts written by the community to accomplish bulk tasks using the backend. So you were mentioning that you wish you had known what had been available to you in the API, so this is a great resource and a great place to start. And then we have lots of things available like plugins and scripts and documentations written or developed by the community that we feature on the wiki or blog. So those are other places for you to go and to look and to search. And if you have your own plugin, script, documentation, anything that you feel like you'd be willing to contribute, you are more than welcome to add your own. That's what it means to be a community. So if you don't feel like it's ready or you don't feel like you're an expert, we all feel like that, so please be willing to contribute. All right, so ways that you can interact with each other, and this was a conversation that came up earlier in the Birds of a Feather, is ways that we can sort of work with or speak with each other within the community, and also like with our own sort of different demographics within the community, but ways to better facilitate conversation. Of course, the forums are a great place to do it. We're seeing each other face to face. You're able to see someone you've been meaning to talk to, and you grab them and you speak to them, or you see one of us on the program team and you're able to ask that question right there in real time. The webinars always have Q&A in their live, so if you're able to attend a live webinar, you're able to get feedback that way that you're not able to get whenever you just watch the video. Our listservs, so this is something we can talk about in the discussion, are our listservs and how we sort of administer those. So listservs are a benefit of membership, so the only people contributing on the listservs are ArchivesSpace members. We have the member rep listserv, which is one person from each institution is on the member rep listserv, and then we have a listserv that is the user group listserv that you probably are all on. My fun fact about listservs is I recommend not doing the digest. Don't do the digest because it's very overwhelming, but it's a great way to communicate with the community. People respond very quickly. The questions vary greatly in terms of technical abilities, and sometimes they can be overwhelming, but it's a really great resource to interact with the community. Or if none of those places are where you want to put your question, or you really need to talk to us, you can always email ArchivesSpace home, and that Christine and I both see those emails, so we're able to put you in touch with the right person or the right resource or answer the question ourselves. Another thing that we can talk about in the conversation at the end are two programs that were implemented before I arrived, and then of course there's everything that happens with a search and putting a new person into a position, and have not happened since I began. One is the community open calls, which is the thing on the last list. That is a quarterly call that's basically sort of loose in its agenda. You all can come. You can address any questions that you may have in real time, and the program team is there. If you've attended any of those and you like them and you really missed them, or if you attended them and you didn't like the structure, we can talk about that at the end. And then there's also the implementation buddies. So this is something that I would like to bring back, but I'm looking at ways to sort of do it differently. I think that I personally would like a mentorship program. You know, when I was an ArchivesSpace user at an institution, being able to have a buddy would have been beneficial. Someone maybe that I could talk to, not just in the beginning of my ArchivesSpace implementation, because we weren't beginners. We weren't, and I don't think that I felt like I could be a mentor. I wasn't there, you know, just someone that I could talk to and commiserate with. So a program like the implementation buddies, but geared more towards the specific needs of users and making matches. I joked that it would be like the Tinder for ArchivesSpace in an earlier meeting, but you know, making sure that you match the two people up. So if you have been sitting through the past hour and a half and you've thought, wow, I have some great ideas I would like to contribute, or I didn't know that so many things were happening within ArchivesSpace, I'd like to get involved, there are ways that you can add your voice to the community. You can participate in our user advisory and technical advisory councils. The Technical Advisory Council has an integration subteam, a technical documentation subteam, which you just heard about from Christine, and a metadata standards subteam that's coming soon. The User Advisory Council has subteams, including the User Documentation subteam, which Kevin just presented on, and a usability subteam, which again is coming soon. Then there are cross-council teams, with members from TAC and UAC. Those are the testing subteam and the development prioritization subteam, which if you were in the morning session, Lydia and Maggie spoke about that. You also can participate in working groups, like the annual forum planning working group. This is a shameless plug. Please participate in that. Helping plan these events is sort of a short-term commitment you can make to ArchivesSpace, because there's an end date, because the event will happen and then it will be over. But you get to sort of voice your opinion about how you would like to see the agenda structured, which also sort of guides what we talk about as a community. So it's very important that if you feel like you really didn't like this agenda, or you really wish we had talked about something, then join a planning group. You can also communicate with each other via the listservs. Like I said, they're open to all of us. They're members only, and it's a great way to communicate with each other. I know that earlier in the Birds of a Feather, there was some discussion about the listservs, and creating new listservs is something I'm actually interested in. So if we can talk about that at the end if you'd like. You can also host a training at your institution. Trainings would be one of our trainers who are super users within ArchivesSpace. It wouldn't be someone from the program team. It would be someone from a member institution like yours coming and leading a training for you or for a group of users at your institution. Or if you think, hey, I'm a super user, you can lead a training for others. You can get in contact with us. You can also contribute to the ArchivesSpace blog. I'm always looking for blog submissions. It would be a very quick, short commitment. You would just need to write one, unless you are really feeling committed. You can do a series. You can contribute documentation like we talked about earlier. You can come to a forum. You're all doing it. You're already participating. Or you can attend or present webinars. I'm always looking for new volunteers to present webinars. Ways to get involved in the technical advancement in ArchivesSpace. So if you wish ArchivesSpace was doing something that it's not, or ArchivesSpace is doing something you wish it wouldn't, you can submit JIRA tickets. You just need to create an account. Earlier, Maggie and Lydia showed us how to create accounts, and you can just go in and say, as an archivist, I wish ArchivesSpace did this, or ArchivesSpace has a bug, here it is. You can get appointed to the Technical Advisory Council and its sub-teams. Every year they put out a call for volunteers. So if you feel so led, you can volunteer to participate. You can just make a suggestion for technical documentation like many of you just did. So we're already doing this list. You can volunteer to test new release candidates. This is something we always need. So we put out release candidates in advance of the release. It's not super time intensive to test a new release, and it's very helpful because it helps us figure out what we need to do to get the thing ready before we put it out into the world for everyone to use. You can become a core committer. You also can participate in the new DevPry queue that Maggie and Lydia talked about. If you feel like you know how to write code, you want to help, We definitely need you. But the core committers are a group of people that are led by Lainey, our tech lead, and they meet, I think they meet monthly, to go over JIRA tickets and work through things for ArchivesSpace. Or if you have some awesome code, you can submit it. So we're going to have a little bit of a conversation, and hopefully we'll have as good a discussion as we did earlier. And we can talk about any of the things that I just presented on. If you have questions about resources, where you find things, why things are the way they are. But I have a few questions just to get us started. And the first is, do you view ArchivesSpace and your role within the ArchivesSpace community differently than you do your relationship with proprietary software that you use as an archivist in your role? And if so, how? How is your interaction with ArchivesSpace different? If you want something from ArchivesSpace, how do you get it?
Ask. It's definitely more responsive than any other software that we've had.
Yeah. I guess I just want you to know that you don't have to wait for a change to happen. You can ask for the change or enact the change. So if you have a problem with ArchivesSpace, what is the first way you try and find an answer? And someone already said I Google. So if you have an ArchivesSpace question, how do you answer that question?
I go to the list, to the user community list.
Which user community list?
The one you have to pay to get to.
Okay. The listserv, yeah. Yeah. So you just post it to the listserv, to the community, yeah.
I'll either look at the documentation or try and see if there's anybody that I know that's encountered the same issue among people that I know that use the program.
How do you meet people that you know? How do you know who uses the program?
From attending events like this,
Yeah.
or just general conversation with colleagues at other institutions.
So of the resources that we talked about, or I maybe forgot, from the program team, what do you use in your daily workflow, or if you aren't in ArchivesSpace daily and the time you actually get to be in ArchivesSpace? What sort of resources do you use?
Daily, I use the API documentation and the crosswalks.
Okay.
Weekly to monthly, I'll go to the awesome list.
Yeah.
Not daily. It's like
So the awesome list is a community resource, which is the next question. So what about community resources? Are you more likely to use a community resource?
SAA, and it's a link on the awesome list, has a collection data, I can't remember the name of it, a collection tools management, has the portal to all kinds of different documentation, and one is ArchivesSpace. And sometimes if I don't know, if I totally understand what would go into a field, I go and look at other people's manuals to see how they're using that field, what their local data looks like, et cetera.
Okay, and you find those through the collection management tools section?
Yeah,
Yep.
the link's on awesome ArchivesSpace, but yeah, that link's in that portal.
Okay.
And they have each, they're all universities, each one is listed separately.
Okay. Yeah, and SAA does occasionally, collection management tools section specifically, they'll do like featured blogs and people will write about documentation and things they've done in ArchivesSpace. And someone recently posted on SAA about batch editing barcodes. And so I reached out to them and we're going to do a webinar. So yeah, that's another great way to find resources.
Something that I would say I had hoped would be more useful, but it turned out to the member directory that was done
Okay, yeah.
a while ago. The fact that it's in a PDF that was just sort of mailed individually makes it not as useful. Like I have to find it every time. doesn't get updated, it's not
Right.
live, it's,
I agree, yeah.
but I think it's something that would be much more useful, or could be a really great tool.
An active member directory, yeah,
Figure out who else is in your boat.
yeah, exactly. And something that you could, in real time, go and edit and change your status or change your contact if the person leaves.
I'm using this piece of the system, but back then I wasn't.
Right, yeah. Update your websites, that sort of thing. Yeah, no, I agree, and that is something we're working on. Yeah.
I will say I really appreciate the people who take the time to write up a full article about something they did. Something that's a little more polished. I find myself going to the Code for Lib article that Dave Mayo and Kate Bowers wrote about migrating EAD pretty regularly, because they wrote down everything they did, and that was incredibly useful for us. And you know, I have in my head a bibliography of stuff. Maybe it would be useful to have a bibliography of you know, polished, peer-reviewed papers written on ArchivesSpace.
Okay, yeah, a bibliography, that's a good idea.
This is something you already know, and I don't know how to solve it. A list of plugins. Like, I'm
Yeah.
desperate for that, and I know you know that.
Yeah.
So I say it out loud, like, if you use a plugin, please tell them about it so there can be a list.
Yeah, thank you. If you use, please tell us about it. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things happening in the ArchivesSpace community that we can't know everything. Or I don't know everything, I'll say that. Yeah, I'm happy to, if you have anything that you'd like to submit or you think, could this be useful, just send it to us. You know, I mean, there's no harm in letting us know what you're doing. At the very least, you know, I'll tweet about the exciting thing you've done. So it does take us to our next question. What resources do you wish you saw from the program team? I'll ask, do you think it would be useful to have more or different listservs that are specific to demographics? If there was more than just one listserv, but a listserv dedicated to very smalls, we talked about this already, or maybe one that is intended to be only for archival things for users and less overwhelming in the technical side.
I, for one, think that would be really helpful, because I'm working with training students
Mm-hmm.
and trying to explain some basic concepts to them, and they're very, very interested in learning and becoming invested in this. But trying to sort out the technical versus the hands-on archives users
Right.
sometimes gets a little overwhelming.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I
yeah.
think it would help. I don't think we need, 10 new lists.
Well, right, that's the thing, overwhelming you with listservs, but making sure that, I mean, there are different users within this community. We're all very different. We're coming from different repositories. We're all special. So being able to find people who are special like you and working together, I think, is one thing that I would like to see more of, yeah.
I'd like to see something more specific to metadata.
Okay, yeah.
I have a lot, that's where my questions are all from right now, like, what should I use in that field?
Okay, yeah, and we are going to have the metadata standards sub-team that will be starting soon, and they put out a charge, so that's definitely something that we're thinking about. So you'll be able to reach out to them directly, and hopefully they'll get some documentation out that's specific to that, yeah.
And about demographics, I wonder if it's not so much the type of repository you are as where you are in your ArchivesSpace journey.
Right, yeah. Well, there's so many different ways to think about that. Where you are in your journey, where you are geographically, do you want to be able to meet up?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about this in addition to the implementation buddies and how to get that off the ground again in a way that makes sense. Do we want to be closer together? You know, making the right, helping people, facilitating the right matches so that we can help each other within ArchivesSpace. That community engagement call, the idea of help yourselves and each other. Yeah.
Just a comment, I wonder if something that could come out of that is a list of best practices for a type of institution, maybe, like museums versus smaller things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good idea. I don't want to be the one to prescribe that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's just-
Yeah.
No, that's it, just like, I wonder if that is something.
Yeah, yeah, and the sort of self-reporting, like, we are this type of institution, I'm happy to be reached out to, and that sort of thing. And of course, that goes back to a member directory that is more dynamic. You can indicate that sort of thing, and it sort of all comes full circle in that way, yeah. Yeah. We've got loads of time, so if I didn't ask the question you needed, if you want to offer anything to me, please feel free.
Is there anything that we do that, I mean, in terms of community resources, they're like, why do they bother doing that? Or we'd really like that to be a different way for it to be used.
How many of you actively check the blog?
I guess I'll admit, I didn't even realize it was a blog. But I don't know how you would fix it, but I often feel like the information about ArchivesSpace is spread across a bunch of different platforms, and how it is that I can actually just go to some place where I can neatly see like a concise list of resources
Yeah.
to go to is often it's just hard. I end up reverting to Google, and it leads me to where I want to go, but.
Oh, I Google too sometimes. I mean, I agree. It can be overwhelming. I think the awesome list is a great start, but it comes with community buy-in. We have to be willing to say, this is the resource I have created and I'm making it available. So, like you said, I want more plugins. Please tell me about your plugins. It's just telling us and saying that you've done this stuff, and feeling comfortable enough to do it. Yeah.
There's even things like, I know there's a roadmap. Where is the roadmap? I'm just going to
Right.
Google ArchivesSpace roadmap. It's, things that aren't even that I don't know about. It's things I know I know.
They're somewhere. Yeah.
They're on so
Yeah.
many different platforms.
Right,
It's
yeah.
very
Yeah.
fragmented
Yeah.
even within what the community
Within, yeah.
provides.
Yeah, Wiki, GitHub, other GitHub, yeah.
And there's the website. I mean, it's just.
Where would the landing page for this list be? The website? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know when I do Google, I Google ArchivesSpace Jira a lot to get to that page. I should just bookmark it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But archivespace.org is always the first couple of hits, and it'll be like a blog posting about it, and it's like halfway down that I actually get the Jira link. So I don't know if archivespace.org, just that's what Google's touching all the time, or just that particular search, I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah.
And if you ever did something like that, I would like to see that also kind of oriented in the life cycle of like, you haven't even started yet, here's your section, and like,
Right.
you're thinking about it now, and then eventually like the awesome list would probably be like maybe lower on that page because you were already in ArchivesSpace
Right.
before you care about some of those things. So I like the idea of a central page, but then you have a lot of link rot, and that's another thing that needs to be maintained.
Right. Right. Yeah. And organizing it according to where you are in your implementation instead of like according to end goal. Like you want here, like you don't want to have like here's all the documentation. Here are all of the scripts available to. I mean, you would rather have it be like, are you just getting started? Try here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so, because especially because if you are the person who's just getting started, you're probably most likely to be, in the spectrum, you're probably the most likely to be overwhelmed.
Oh yeah.
And then the people who are experienced can get overwhelmed and be like, okay, I don't need this webpage, this webpage. So I would probably personally privilege the scared beginner user to the more experienced seasoned user.
Do we need a new member, not a new member orientation, but some sort of new member guide to resources. Yeah. And I say new member guide to resources, but probably, and everybody, we're talking about a guide to resources. Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Getting started. Yeah.
And that's a good reminder when you forget about things that are out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's so many. Yeah.
One thing we do for new members is meaning at the institutional level, not individual people, they get an email that has kind of resources listed. But of course, people change an institution, and a large institution that only goes to one person.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
maybe there's some way to replicate that.
Yeah.
The side of great things, the blast that comes out, is it quarterly or monthly?
The monthly update.
I mean, it's really great. It
Okay.
really is.
Okay, good. I thought you were going to say, that's too many.
You want to say what's great about it? Well, the fact that it comes to me, I'll admit, I mean, it's hard to remember to go and
Right.
find out what the new things, so when it comes to me, then I read it.
Yeah.
It's really, I suppose the greatest thing about it is that I don't have to think about, oh, I should go and see, it's been a while since I looked, what's going on. And I mean, just even a brief glance through it, you see things that just didn't come to you otherwise.
Mhm.
It's really helpful.
It seems to be popular enough that I'll see it 3 or 4 times in 3 or 4 different forums as well.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right. We like the monthly update.
I think similarly, the new release summary that comes out when a new release is
Mhm.
ready is also really useful. That's something that I read really closely.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I'm just seeing a million notifications and I'm like, okay, whatever, but it's going to be in the next thing that's rolling out, then I'm going to look at that very carefully.
Yeah.
And I'll say, whenever I see an email with your name and in the past with Christine Kim's name, I always read that. Whatever that is, I read that.
An identifiable name.